So back by popular demand, another painterly style one. So this time I'm on a bit of Saunders. It's 5 by 6 inches wide. So still, again, not very big. This is a new style to me, so I'm gonna take my time. And in the same way I teach, I'm going to do it small to start with before I start going bigger. Okay, so I've got a bit of a cliff face in here. I'll pop a little bit of a promenade. I'm going to do a little bit of water. This is inspired by a photo from Brunswick Bay, but I'm just going to do less in there. So I've got a bit of water, so I've got a bit of a seascape. And then this is a bit of like a walkway promenade. And I'm going to pop a little cottage in. So I've got one vertical, two verticals. Horizontally, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do that at the bottom, slant that down. I'm going to pop a little doorway in. Here's a nice and little window, window up here, and a window up there. Roof, I'm going to slant it either side, and then this line I'm going to taper it downwards there. So that one's horizontal, that one goes up to the left, down to the right. So that's just going to give you a little bit of a sense of perspective. Now I'm going to pop a tree in here at the side. There's lots of other houses at Brunswick Bay that I'm just going to concentrate on that one within this scene. So it's nice and clear for you. I'm using my Cotman palette. I'll talk you through the colours as I go. I've got a round number 10, a round number 6 and a rigger. So I'm going to start by getting a wash onto the sky. So a little bit of water in round number 10. Going to come into the cadmium yellow. And paint that towards the bottom. Leave a little bit of a gap. Paint a bit more in here. Rinse my brush out. This is alizarin crimson I'm dabbing into now, towards the top. This painterly style you end up with dry over the top as well. I'll just strengthen the top section up, and then I'm going to bring some of that alizarin crimson through the yellow. A little bit down here as well. I've got odd little bits of dry, I'm going to leave those in. It lends to the painterly style. I'm going to swap down to my number 6. And I have got cerulean blue here. Cobalt blue would do, ultramarine blue would do. I'm just going to pop a little bit in. Number 6 just means I'm a little bit more in control. And keeping it within that alizarin crimson section. I'm going to get some nice bits of purple happening there. Back to my round number 10. Coming back into the cadmium yellow, and this is on to dry. I'm going to do this promenade section. So I'm just concentrating really on getting a base in. So that's the cadmium yellow. I'm going to use the alizarin again, just dabbed into that. I've not rinsed my brush in between. So So I'll get a little bit of warmth in there. If you've got raw sienna, this would be the perfect colour. Raw sienna or yellow ochre. I'm managing with what I've got, so it's not always as easy. But then I think everybody doesn't have certain colours. This is ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm making a darker grey. Just going to pop a little bit of that towards the bottom of there. I'm going to come into the water. So I'm going to come on to dry because it's lending well to this painterly style. This is the cerulean blue and I want to leave dry bits. So with my round number 10, I'm sweeping through leaving a few dry bits. Doesn't matter if they connect together a little bit, it's absolutely fine. There's no rules with this painterly style I've worked out. Okay, so this is that grey again. I'm just mixing up a little bit more. Just take a little bit in towards the front. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I think the secret to this technique is to work quickly, to work loosely and keep drying it. So I'm now going to come into the hillside at the back. So I'm using my round number 10. This is a cadmium yellow coming on. And I'm leaving odd gaps. And then I'm going to come into some sap green. Dabbing in. Don't mind leaving a little bit of white. I'm going to dab into this tree at the side of the house as well. I'm going to take in a little bit of cadmium red. So this is going to make the green much more natural as we build up some layers. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the burnt umber. If you haven't got any of these colours, then I just want you to choose something that's closest to it. It honestly doesn't matter. You want a nice dark edge against the side of that house there. That's going to help. Just random dabbing. Random is quite hard to do, but it does work. I'm going to take a tiny bit of the cerulean blue in as well. I did not rinse my brush in between there. The bigger the brush you can use, the better when you're doing this. If I take some green, so this one is Viridium, and take a little bit of brown into it, I'm going to get a much more natural green. Then we're going to come into that whilst it's still damp on this tree at the side. There we go, got a nice tree there. I'm just going to dab in a few bits here as well. Gives a nice sense of distance. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I've got a little bit of this grey left here, which is the ultramarine and the burnt umber, but any sort of blue and like cobalt blue and burnt sienna make a great grey. Payne's grey would work. I'm using my round number 6 and I'm just popping in those windows and the door. I'm also going to pop in the roof. So this is all on to dry. Make sure you get a really nice edge on that roof. If I just dab into a little bit of the cadmium red, I'm just going to warm up the roof a little bit. There we go. Just a nice contrast. I've also got a little bit of a step here, so that's a bit of the cadmium yellow with a little bit of the cadmium red over there as well. Right, I'm going to come back into that dark green mix. So that was Viridian and Burnt Umber. I'm going to start to dab a bit more painterly on the tree. So this is my round number 6, random dabbing. We're going to start to get lots of nice loose marks in here now. So I've got that on, and then I'm going to come into a little bit of the ultramarine blue on its own and just dab some of that through. It's a really interesting effect because it makes everything nice and loose. I'm going to come number 6. I'm going to pop some of the cadmium yellow back onto the promenade bit, horizontally lines, but leaving gaps. I'm leaving dry marks. Then a little bit of the alizarin crimson coming in here. So I'm just dabbing into the colours. My brush has got a little bit of water on. And I'm going to come back into that grey. So I get a nice dark edge at the bottom here. There's lots of really interesting marks. Rinse my brush out. As a rule, I'm basically coming back on with the same colour over the top. So this is the cerulean blue. I'm moving it through the water. So I'm starting to get some ripply bits. I'm avoiding all those white patches. I want to keep those white patches. Keep dipping back in the water because I want this to be quite fluid. Should be really nice and expressive. Well, these little runs, I want you to leave them. I want you to work with them. I'm going to take a little bit of the alizarin crimson again. Bring that through. So this is hitting some of the wet cerulean, some of the drier areas. If anything looks a little bit too bold, just wet it in. So I'm just wetting that bit in a little bit. To be too bold there. It's really effective. I'm going to dab into some of the yellow too. I'm just reflecting some of the colours basically from the sky within here. And see, you can have a little bit of green, so it works quite nicely. So I'm just taking some of the cadmium yellow through at the front as well. This painterly effect is quite rainbow. I quite like it. The beauty of it is to just get the dark right. If you've got a bit of the dark in, it just works. So I'm going to take some of this. This is the burnt umber and ultramarine that's making my dark. But if you've got a dark, then you can just use that. I'm just going to bring some of that towards the bottom of this promenade. You can see now, look, it's just starting to get that lovely glow, and that's purely from that dark. What's nice about this is when you're working small is you're taking the pressure off a little bit. I'm going to pop a little bit more dark in there. I'm just going to come back over the roof. So I want that to be nice and dark. I'm leaving the building white so you've got that really lovely glow. Okay, I'm swapping now to my round number 10. I'm going to come back into the sky. So this is a little bit of the cadmium yellow coming through, keeping quite horizontal strokes, leaving gaps. I want this to look really loose. Not rinsing my brush, but I've dabbed into a bit more water, and then this is the alizarin crimson coming back in. And bring some of that through. The quicker that you can do this, remember you're leaving gaps, leaving dry gaps, the better. You don't want it to dry whilst you're doing this on dry. Hence why I've swapped back to a bigger brush to do this section. Rinse my brush out. I'm going to pick up some of the cerulean blue. Just bring that in towards the top. I'm actually going to dip into the ultramarine blue a little bit so I'll get it nice and dark at that top section. It's looking really pretty now. So this is a little bit more of the cadmium yellow with my round number 10. Just dabbing into this tree area so that's getting a much more glow to it, much more of a glow. I'm going to actually bring some of the cadmium red in. With the Cotman palette, these are semi-transparent, so you don't tend to get mud. So you would need to be careful if you were using different cadmium red. I'd use alizarin instead. In fact, I'm going to dab a bit of the alizarin in. Using the same sorts of colours always creates a really nice synergy. And then I'm just going to come into a little bit of the sap green because I've used that previously and I've tried to use the same colours. Just bring that along. There we go. I'm just going to dry that off and we'll make any final tweaks. Okay, so that's nicely dry. A couple of bits that I want to do. So I'm going to come down this side of the house with a tiny bit of the watery grey. So I want that side of the house to be in shadow. And I'm just going to take a bit of that grey just underneath there as well, and possibly a bit down there, just so it's given a better shadow on the house. This is my round number 6 that I'm using. I'm going to dip into some of the cadmium red. I want to bold this up a little bit. So this is just some strokes along the front, just to really warm that section up. I'm going to touch into the alizarin crimson. It's a really sort of loose, liberating style actually. I'm going to come back into the alizarin crimson, take a little bit more into the water here. So this is all on to dry, just creating some really nice strokes. Alizarin crimson up here as well. Remember, we want this to be painterly. We want this to have loose marks and have atmosphere. So I'm varying the pressure of the brush, dipping into water sometimes, not into others, so I'm getting a variety of tone in here. And dip back into the cadmium yellow, just taking a little bit more there. Just warm through in there as well. And then a little bit more. This is one of those things you could tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, but I'm not going to. I'm Just going to take a little bit more of the cerulean blue in, just on the front of the water. I want the water to stand forward, so all of this is bolding that up. And those lovely sort of white highlights holding together really nicely. Dab back into the cadmium yellow. Just going to take a little bit more on here. And a little bit of the cadmium red. Just looks a little bit flat. I don't want it to look flat. I want it to have a few marks. With the red and green, it's a complementary colour, so it's muting it back. But it's just giving me a little bit more texture in there, which is what I want. Okay, I'll take the tape off. And there we go, so it's all finished. It's again a really expressive, loose, painterly style. It proved really popular in the last video. I'm sure that this one will prove just as popular, and I think it's started a new sort of loose, painterly style series for me. So if you've enjoyed today, please do like, subscribe, give me a comment. Let me know what you want me to do in a painterly style. I shall pop a playlist here and another video here for you, and I shall see you next time. Bye.